What's happening, Hardscapers? Today we're going to go through the internet's most asked hardscape questions. Let's get into this. Starting with the most simple two-word question, why pavers? And actually, a couple of my videos show up in the top search there, which is nice to see, both on why pavers fail and why pavers suck. What is the point of pavers? Why use pavers instead of concrete? What is the downside to paver patio? And why should I install pavers? All along the same lines of why pavers. Well, in comparison to concrete, pavers provide a lot more customization in the actual design. It also provides a lot more options. I know stamped concrete, you can get a lot of different stamps these days to be able to customize that project, add coloring to it. That's great. Pavers add a little bit more customization and have a lot more different textures, color blends, and a lot more manufacturers create them. And that being said, manufacturing pavers is done in a factory setting, controlled setting. That means you get the higher compression strength. You get that concrete cured in a proper environment and making sure that that mix is consistent. Whereas in a poured concrete setting, that's done in the elements of the day that they're pouring concrete. So that is up to the environment to dictate the curing of that concrete. If pavers settle, you can pick them back up, put them back down. If concrete settles, you're getting cracks, you're having to replace a large slab which won't match the existing slabs, which means you may have to replace that entire project if you want it to look consistent. And with pavers, going back to the aesthetics, you get different shapes, sizes, textures, colors. And concrete, you stick to mostly that large format appeal. Now that's just my thoughts on pavers. I also did why pavers over concrete video, but also did a why pavers suck video, why concrete over pavers, if you want to check those out on the channel. Okay, next one here, we're gonna go to the Reddit subreddit Hardscape and see what is there. Efflo in pavers. If you don't know, efflorescence is a white mineral. It is caused by the minerals dissolving within the concrete, and then that moisture wicking its way to the surface, and that moisture deposits those minerals on the surface. It is a white residue. This is a byproduct of concrete. It's going to happen. It usually works its way out of the system, but there is cleaners on the market to be able to clean the efflorescence as well. And this question says, hi, just cleaned my new installed pavers with paver prep. However, after my black border, blocks are hazier than before. What gives? Do I just need to clean again? Well, this is a tricky one. Usually with efflorescence, I like to give a few months if we laid product that has some efflorescence. If it's a significant amount of efflorescence, it's best to talk to your sales rep to see what they can do for you for this. But in this scenario, if you went ahead and cleaned it and it returned, or it actually looks like in this photo that it's really etched that surface of the concrete, and because a efflorescence cleaner is typically an acid-based cleaner, it is going to etch that surface. So you have to be extremely careful, making sure that the surface is wet before you apply it, scrub it, and then make sure that that gets completely off the surface. That could be one problem in this scenario. I do see speckles in this concrete, which tells me that that acid ate away at that surface probably for longer than what you wanted to have it on it. But there are also now soap-based washes that are a little bit better, less acidic than a typical efflorescence cleaner that you may want to use next time. It's actually what I now use to be able to clean efflorescence. It works great. And you don't have to worry so much about that acid eating away at that surface of the pavers. Efflorescence can reappear. That may be something more to do with the base. Typically, a stone dust base will keep water below those pavers, and then that water will wick its way through the surface and deposit those minerals on the surface of the pavers. But eventually that efflorescence should work its way out of the system. These are step caps though. That's a little bit trickier. Maybe there's water being trapped underneath them, and that's the only way that that water is getting out. And that could have to do with the way that you glued your caps. We glue our caps parallel so that those lines allow water to flow out. But if you did your glue bonds perpendicular to the step caps, you're actually trapping that water underneath them, and that water has to work its way out of the the system somehow. So more than likely that water is working its way out of the surface of those caps. Unfortunately, there's so many different things that this could be without knowing exactly how it was installed, how exactly you cleaned it, what was the timeline in between the cleaning and the reappearance of the efflorescence. I really can't give too much more advice on this subject. But I do see in the comments somebody saying just apply a wet gloss sealer. This is the wrong thing to do. You want to make sure before you seal, you've got all the efflorescence out of those pavers, out of those step caps. If you apply a wet gloss sealer especially, it's going to trap that efflorescence. You'll never be able to get it off unless you strip that sealer and start again fresh. That being said, there are breathable sealers on the market that do allow that efflorescence to not get trapped underneath. And somebody else says give it a season or so, see if it works its way out of the system. That's generally good advice. It kind of sucks having a brand new project and you're getting that efflorescence as bad as it is. If it is as bad as it is in this photo, I would honestly reach out to my sales rep or my supplier, whoever supplied me with those stones, and talk to them about this. Here's another one. What tolerance would you accept for pavers to shift? Hey there, had a patio installed last fall and some of the steps shifted over the winter, but I can feel the difference when I walk on them. Isolated to the steps, it was flush when installed, but I would say these pavers are about 1/8 of an inch to 3/16 of an inch. Is some shifting like this expected? Now we get a photo of this tolerance. Now ICPI dictates, especially with pavers, a plus or minus 1/16 of an inch from stone to stone, I believe, and that could be as big as a 1/8 of an inch difference from stone to stone with that plus or minus. So is it within the tolerance? Yes, I do see what you're getting at there. Once again, we come down to timelines. When was this installed? They say last fall and over the winter, so we're only a few months out from the time it was installed. Steps are a little bit difficult. If you're building right up against a foundation and it's a brand new build, you will see more movement there than you would elsewhere in the patio. And that's just because the foundation area is the most disturbed soil when a house is built. So that backfilled area has to settle when it does get backfilled. Now, once again, without more information, it's hard to see if this is a contractor, lack of compaction more so, or if this is just typical movement for a new build in your area. Play it by ear, see how it goes next year, especially after the winter, and let's revisit how this settles after the frost is gone out of that system. Also a reason why we like to install on open graded base. Will the ground move? Yes. Is it expected? Absolutely. Is 1/8 of an inch within the tolerance? Yes. Okay, let's move on here. Approximate costs, please, and then a long description of what they're looking at. I don't like these questions. It's very difficult to answer them. It's very much dictated by the competition in the market, where your market is. For example, for me, we work 8 months out of the year, but in Florida, they work year round. That provides a yearly revenue to be able to recoup your overhead expenses, whereas us in Toronto, our overhead expenses need to be recouped in that 8-month period, which means our prices should be higher than those contractors in Florida. But it also depends on the experience of the company, how long they have been in business, because that's more valuable. Shows that as a client, as somebody reaching out to this company, that they will hold up their end of the warranty. And this goes on and on and on, especially for companies in a specific area. Their prices will range as well because their overhead is going to be very different. Think of a larger company that has a salesperson, a designer, a project manager, a foreman, and then their business owner all on staff that they need to pay, maybe even an admin person. Their price is going to be very different to that owner operator that does all of those job roles. So that's something that you need to consider. So if you're looking for an approximate cost, if this is a contractor, we actually have a budgeting and estimating software that's going to help you with that. Link will be in the description below there. But if this is a homeowner and your determining factor to be able to get a contractor is price, then shop around, see what the different quotes that you're going to get. It's going to take up more of your time. You're going to have to meet each of these contractors, and then eventually you'll get the quotes that you can compare. But personally, the pricing of the project shouldn't be the most important factor. Cheap is not always cheaper in the long run. Pooling on pavers. Had a new paver patio installed last fall. There's a slight low spot where water pools after even medium-sized rainfall. In the middle, only about 1/4 inch or so, but enough that it's splashed around. It drains relatively quickly. But still concerned about the long term. Should I get this fixed or am I overreacting? No photo to go along with this. 1/4 of an inch is a decent amount of buildup, but you do say that it does drain drain relatively quickly. Now that could be due to a lot of different things. The texture of the stone could cause a minimal pooling, but if that is draining and you get decent sunlight on that paver patio, you shouldn't be too concerned about this, especially if, like you said, it drains relatively quickly. This could go back to our tolerance issue there of 1/8 of an inch difference, along with the texture of the patio that eventually cause a little bit of pooling. But it's also one of the reasons why we install our jointing compound 1/8 of an inch below the top of the paver or bottom of the chamfer. It allows the lowest point in that pavement for water to then follow and get out of that system. So is the pooling an issue? Well, no. If it's draining relatively quickly, then you shouldn't be too concerned about it. They likely installed it at 1/8 of an inch per foot slope. And the downside to that is if it's not graded perfectly and your stones especially are not within a perfect tolerance, you may get those low spots. The trade-off there is the slope is not as aggressive as a 1/4 of an inch per square foot slope, which we would opt for if the texture of the stone is really aggressive or if you don't get a lot of sunlight into your backyard. So trade-offs with both. I would just play this by ear, see how it goes here, and check your warranty on the labor that goes along with that company, and maybe call them back just before that if it is a major issue beyond it draining relatively quickly. And here's one more on cleaning concrete pavers here. After cutting concrete pavers all day, a lot of cement dust fell on the installed pavers and has left a white hue layer on top. Power washing them, it makes them look good while wet, but when it dries, it returns to the white hue overlay look. Any ideas on how to rinse this off? There is a slurry cleaner on the market that is once again an acid-based wash that you can go ahead and try that on a small area before you move to the entire project to see how that works. This is a problem in our industry, is the dust. And we use a table saw that collects that dust, and in some cases, especially with these pavers that you're cutting, we would cut those in place and either cut wet, but immediately after cutting wet, clear off that slurry. That slurry is the water mixed with the concrete dust that is just like a muddy, slimy mess that gets all over the pavers. And if that cures on the pavers, if it dries, it's there. And then we have to use that acid-based cleaner. Now, if you cut dry and that dust is flying everywhere, yes, it's going to get on your pavers. So get that leaf blower out immediately and start hitting that surface with that leaf blower. Now, the problem is if you're walking through that dust, you're going to leave imprints of your footprints, and that's harder to get off. At that point, you need to get water out and hit that, scrub it a little bit. We like to do that at the very end of the day, because if you get the water out and you're still cutting, now you've created slurry, you've created an area where that water of the pavement will attract that dust will stick, and it's an even bigger mess. So dust is always a problem in our industry. That slurry is always a problem. You just got to stay on top of it and stay paying attention to that detail. Hey, I hope you enjoyed this video. If it's helped you in some way, please give it a like. I'll do more of these videos answering your questions. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment section below, or I will do more just going through all of these different questions that we get on these Reddits, subreddits, Hardscape, or on other Facebook groups. If you want to know specific contractor questions, business owner questions that come up in the hardscape industry, if you prefer that as well. And hey, subscribe to this YouTube video for more hardscaping content like this. Thank you so much for watching.